welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're doing something that in Star Frontiers, because this is a Star Frontiers video, used to make me panic and filled my world with dread as a referee. What is that? That is car chases and combat when you've got bad guys chasing after you. There were really good rules in the Star Frontiers Alpha Dawn books about car chases. It started on page 30, went to page 33, and they went into really good detail. Take that. They went into really good detail about how a vehicle can be handled, how you chase each other, how you accelerate and turning speeds, and how fast can you make a turn, how many, what are the angles possible, all that kind of good stuff. Very good rules. And I think the makers of those rules thought to themselves in terms of like board game strategy, move the pieces around, all that kind of good stuff. And that's great, and I loved it. And they were really well thought out. But did I ever use them? Heck no. I actually lived in fear anytime a chase came up, because I was like, okay, now we have to kind of hit the brakes, no pun intended, on the momentum of what we're doing as an adventure. And what we had to do instead is now get out the big grid board, start moving our pieces around. Okay, well, what speed are you going? Well, hang on, we got to make a dice roll. And it really bogged down the action. I didn't enjoy how it impacted the action of the moment, the speed, literally, in which the characters are going through some stuff. Until, and there's a reason I'm using my Star Wars blaster here, I actually read through the West End Games Star Wars the role-playing game rules that came out in the late 80s. This was a this was a book that had taken, let's do Star Wars. I think there were a lot of role-playing games in the late 80s, pen and paper, role-playing games that were being attempted. You had Star Trek, Aliens, a bunch of different intellectual properties. We're all doing, hey, let's switch ourselves to like a D&D or Star Frontiers type of a game. And Star Wars was among them. And West End Games really nailed it. I like what they were doing. They thought to themselves, okay, Star Wars is simple. Star Wars is about moving a story forward. Case in point, with the blasters, no ammunition. You don't need to have ammunition. Did you ever see somebody in a game in the movies change a clip? No. They knew what they were dealing with right away, the West End Games folks. So they made very simple rules, and what I liked about the Star Wars role-playing game was it was just a die 6 system. Everything was rolled with a die 6, and they nicely pared down, focused down what a lot of characters, what a lot of players might encounter, and they made it work. And it made it actually, for my purposes in Star Frontiers, it made it super convenient that I could just oops those die 6 rolls into die 10 rolls, because for those who don't know, in Star Frontiers you're only using a die 10. But it really made for a nice translation over across from the Star Wars role-playing game, from West End Games. There was another one in the 90s, I can't remember who made it, but not that one. Specifically the West End Games Star Wars role-playing game. They nicely pared it down. They made it super easy, and super easy for me to convert into Star Frontiers rules. And the one that I wanted to talk about that really changed my campaign was the vehicle combat, the car chase rules. I wanted to make sure that I gave proper credit to West End Games and their version of these rules, because my God, they made such a difference in my campaign. Now, in Star Frontiers, the Alpha Dawn rulebook, you had, again, very nicely laid out, and honestly more detailed. If you're looking for good rules, and I'm going to go into them in a second, that are more in depth, the Star Frontiers rulebook is pretty good. I got to give credit where credit's due. The only problem is it slows down the pace of the action. We are doing a car chase or a flying vehicle chase. To then bog us down with a bunch of slow stuff, it didn't work for me. The Star Wars rules really hit upon a nice, easy way to handle thematically in the story what is most likely going to be happening anytime characters are in a car chase. So I recommend these rules for that situation, and I'm going to go into them in a bit of detail right now. Okay, so if you got yourself a copy of Star Wars the Role-Playing Game, the West End game one, on page 34, love what they talk about here. And I'll do a few very brief quotes here. Chases occur frequently. When one vehicle chases another, describe them as being at either short, medium, or long range from each other. It's often convenient to rule that these ranges correspond to the ranges of whatever weapons the occupants of the two vehicles are using. That right there saves you a heck of a lot of stress and strain. I just thought to myself, yeah, if you think about it in terms of what we see in a story, in a movie or whatever, what are we at? We're either at short, medium, or long range. That's really all that has an impact and is easily convertible into Starfincher's rules. Are we at short range? Then you have those modifiers. Medium range? Oh no, you're at those modifiers. Long range, it's going to be really hard to make that shot. That's really all you need out of a car chase or a vehicle chase of any type. You just need to specify you're at either short, medium, or long range, and that's all. Now, the players inside the vehicle might be like, hey, wait a minute, I've got a needler, and that's got crummy range. How come I'm suffering the same penalty as my buddy with the laser rifle? That doesn't make any sense. True, valid, 100%. But at the cost of really making this short car chase that would take half an hour to do in rules and rolls, now we're going to expand this into a 2-hour epilogue. And it's like, no. Short, medium, or long. That's where your party is compared to the people you're chasing. Or vice versa. The bad guys are chasing you and they're at short, medium, or long range. Brilliant. That wipes out so many problems in a role-playing game. Great stuff. Each round, make skill rolls for the drivers of the two vehicles. So you really want somebody who's good at driving in charge of both of the craft. Also, roll each vehicle's speed dice. Now, these are called speed dice, are also called speed code. And in the Star Wars role-playing, this book here, they detail all of the different vehicles, and in each one, they give each one a speed die or a speed roll, or speed code, I should say. So, for example, a Bespin twin pod cloud car, it's got 3 die as its speed code. So in other words, if you were to have it flying along in this scenario, you would roll 3 die 6, or in our case in Starfincher's, 3 die 10. Great. Let's say it's either chasing or being chased by characters in the Tatooine skiff, the Jabba's Sail skiff group. I've got one of those. I've done a video about it. That vehicle, because it's a slower, more cruising along type of a vehicle, it only gets 1 die. So just on the very surface of it, and this, you can tell this makes sense. Somebody in a twin pod cloud car from Bespin is going to roll 3 die to see a number. Let's say they roll, 14. The character who's in the Tatooine skiff gets 1 die. No way in heck is he ever going to get more than the character in the twin pod cloud car. I mean, if the twin pod cloud car driver rolls really bad and rolls 3 1s, okay, your total is 3. The guy in the skiff vehicle might roll a 6, so he actually does better than the one in the twin pod cloud car. But the odds are stacked against you due to the type of vehicle that you're in. That's brilliant, because what does this number mean? Oh dear, I rolled a 3. Well, that's great, I rolled a 6. Does that mean I move 60 meters? No. It just means in that roll of the dice, in that lottery, you won, not the guy in the twin pod cloud car. Okay. Now, in addition to that, we're also adding the skill of the driver. So if somebody is really high level driving that Tatooine skiff, he might be able to influence his crummy roll of 4 or 5 into 10 or something. And that means the guy who's in the twin pod cloud car, if he's a really lousy driver and he's only rolling 3 of the die instead of 6, or instead of 1, he might still not do as well. So it's a nice balance of like, what kind of a vehicle are we driving? This one's a slow flying, hovering vehicle. This one's a really fast air car. Okay, but there are still factors as to does the driver make a difference? Yes, they do. And again, the result of the die roll, whether it's die 6 or die 10, it's not what the number is that's important. It doesn't matter if you roll a 14 or a 12 or anything else like that. Did you win? Did your dice do better than the opponent's dice? It's like, literally, it's a crapshoot. And the book gives a really good example, but I'm not going to read it out here. Read it at your leisure. If the chaser's total roll is higher, he closes with the vehicle he is chasing. From long to medium, medium to short. If the chased character's total roll is higher, the range is increased by 1 step. Short to medium, medium to long. If the chased character's roll is higher and he's already at long range, he gets away. That was like a light bulb moment for me. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. What are you ever doing in a car chase? You're trying to close the gap. Those who are using the guns, shooting out the windows, they're going to be, okay, oh no, I've got a long range shot I got to make. That's going to make it tougher. And that's it. That's all you really need. Or do they get really close? And then I'll get back to the Star Frontiers rules in a second, but do you close the gap? Are you now at the same side by side with your two vehicles? Or do you get so far away that you lose the other guy? That's really all that a car chase needs to be. And I used to really, really worry before reading these Star Wars rules. I was really thinking like, oh, this is going to be hard. This is going to be really hard. But not anymore. Now with this Star Wars rule, I can do my car chase, my vehicle chase, and never have to worry about, are we slowing down the pace of the adventure? Now, I did say, back to the original Alpha Dawn rules, they were very good of like, okay, so now you've got your two vehicles side by side, and in a lot of movies, you see them, they want to like push and, shove up against and bash against them. What happens then? The Star Wars rules didn't have that. The Star Frontiers rules were very good about like, okay, if you're going to try and bump him, here's what happens with that. Or if you want to do a 180, if you want to skid and like, do a 180 with the car, that could happen too. Or what if during combat you get damaged to the vehicle and now like your steering wheel is jammed in one direction? That's very, very good. So the Star Wars rules were not as detailed for, okay, but what happens when you catch them? Or what happens if I shoot the tires? Or what happens if I shoot the driver? Like him. Instead, the Star Frontiers rules were very good for that, but all of the range stuff, I was always like, I hate this. This is just, I don't want to do a car chase. I don't want to do any vehicular chasing stuff. With the Star Wars rules, I totally did, and I totally enjoyed them. So, if I would make a recommendation, use the Star Wars rules for at least 75% of most of your car chase scenarios. Anything you're going to do that requires you to get closer or farther from the opponent, do they get away or not? If that's all this chase is going to, if that's the only purpose it tells in the story of your adventure, use those Star Wars rules because they're way better. But if this is going to get complicated, if now we're side by side and we're banging up against each other or whatever, okay, maybe you could look back around page 31, 32 in the Alpha Dawn rules. There's a whole good section as well to do with flying vehicles, jet copters, glide jets. What impact does this kind of technology have on our scenario here? They even go into the nap of the earth rule where, a helicopter wants to kind of hug the ground and make sure it's not detectable. That kind of stuff. The Star Frontiers rulebook is very, very good and very, very detailed, and I really, really liked it. But my God, did it put a stopper on adventure car chases and vehicle chases. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm still trying to chase these guys, and I want to make sure that this gets resolved with more than just a dice roll. So, I'll say goodbye for now, and until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole. Get 'em!